appreciate the opportunity to chat with you guys today. I have for almost now, I've 12 years, it'll be 12 years in December when I started Candy Event Consulting, and it was really meant to be an opportunity for anybody that was planning or promoting their own events to get support, to learn, to meet each other. I grew up where my family was very heavily involved in a community, and the community always was gathering. And so for many of you, you are planning events for your maybe nonprofit group, for your business, maybe you're an entrepreneur. There's so many ways that we engage through events. And so this idea of gathering together and doing it better has always been a passion of mine, and has always been something that I feel like, how do we have real conversations? How do we get over the speed bumps? Sometimes there's things that we do in our event planning that we're just throwing caution to the wind. And I actually teach risk management for at MRU here, the Mount Royal University here in Calgary, for event management. And it is, it's kind of comical in some ways because I'm a risk taker, while at the same time, I am teaching risk management. But this idea of really knowing the risks, but then taking chances on the way that we bring people together is so important. And so this idea of learning new tips, maybe some new ideas on engaging online guests. I think you guys are going to get a lot out of this. I hope so. Feel free to add to the chat box, and I will maybe be asking a couple of questions. So some of you that have been, Lori's nodding, you've been to some of my workshops, and you know that I love to be face to face, and I love that interaction. But if you don't feel comfortable, that is completely fine. So just, oh, hey, Evelyn. So just to get started, could you guys, well, I guess I should tell you a little bit about me. My name is Lisa Gareau. I'm the founder of Candy Event Consulting. Like I mentioned, I've been planning events for 30-something years, and I have loved this opportunity to be training, coaching, supporting anybody that's planning or promoting their own events. So Candy Short Guides to Learning has been, it just got launched just this last, in October, but this idea of having quick learning, something that we can be having discussions about and feeding in your experience to maybe some new learning. So to get started, engaging online guests, I always love starting with definitions. And so if you have downloaded the workbook, you probably have your own cheat notes there. But if you guys could type into the chat box, what does engaging mean to you? And you don't have to use my definition, but not a talking head, right? Sometimes I feel like a talking head on Zoom these days, probably you guys too. Engaging means keeping the guests, Evelyn, I'll just open the chat, keeping the guests alive. I really love that. That's beautiful. Any other ideas? What does engagement mean? And it's interesting, when I was looking up the definition, what I was actually finding was that it was like getting engaged. So preparing to get married. What else have we got? Engagement means participating in interactive, conversation. Awesome. Interactive communication and participation. When we say that our employees, if you're a boss, are engaged, what does that mean? What are we talking about when we say that we've got really engaged employees? Well, we've got hopefully interactive communication, participation, in tune, productive. Cool. So all of those things are very true. And sometimes I think what we do is we throw around buzzwords in a way that our ears get lazy to them, because we hear them all the time. This idea of engagement or an experience, especially with events, we talk about creating experiences. But what does that actually mean? So I've got a little definition here that I want to read to you guys. And yes, I made this up, it's not official. But in the context of events, what I have defined engagement as is an emotional connection to and a spontaneous response to the product, message, or idea that is being presented by the organizers. And in a lot of my research, I was finding this word emotional, this emotional connection. Some kind of an emotion is kind of flowing out of you almost spontaneously. And the cool thing, I did a couple of interviews before we got to today, and I was interviewing a friend out of Toronto, Canada here, and he's a mentalist, a magician, and he does online shows. And what he was talking about was this idea of people kind of getting lost in the moment, where you're so emotionally attached to what's going on. And the fact that we can be doing that online with our online guests in a way that can surprise them and excite them, where they get lost in that moment, is so important. So this idea of being engaged, I mentioned here that it is not just engaged necessarily just to have fun, but if we are throwing an event, if we are that organizer, quite often we're looking for some kind of a response to our call, some kind of an action. We're trying to motivate people. Maybe we're wanting them to volunteer with us. Maybe we want them to donate. Maybe we want them to buy a product that we have to offer. So this idea of engagement being a catalyst for something, that is a really important part of how to approach online engagement with your online guests, because it isn't just about putting on a good show, having the best entertainment, maybe having some great food, but it's really how are we creating this opportunity for people to be emotionally engaged, and that can be a catalyst to something even bigger. So this idea of being ready and willing to show up. So what does it mean as an organizer or as a business owner? Maybe you're on a marketing team and you're running events, or you're on a board. So what does this mean for us to be prepared to show up and engaged? Any ideas in the chat box there? Technical scripts, okay. Any other ideas? What would it mean to be ready and willing to show up? I would probably suggest that showing up for us, or as an event planner, as somebody that's organizing an event, it really is about getting in the space of who are your guests, being excited, being ready, being rested. A lot of us that plan events before an event, how many of us actually feel rested? But it is true. I've learned over the years, even just to tune out a little bit before I get back in and I'm talking to guests, or if I'm meeting up with a partner, just to be in the right headspace, like to leave other things behind and make sure that this moment is their moment. So there's something about really engaging in the moment of exchange with your guests online. We've got better to seek to understand than be understood. Thank you, beautiful. The guest's ego will take over and they will feel it is a good event. Awesome, thank you. And I'm reading this from the chat box, so thanks guys for chiming in. Physically and mentally in the moment, yes. I have an aunt who is notorious. If you were talking to her and she saw a squirrel over there or one of her girlfriends or something cool to look at, her attention would go somewhere else. And she was the most beautiful woman in the world. But it was just like she couldn't stay in that moment with you. And I think it's really important for us to look at ourselves and our planning teams as that hostess or host, in bringing some kind of an experience to the people that are watching and wanting to engage. So this idea of getting our own selves ready is really important. Now we're also inviting these guests to an experience. So if we start looking at an event as an experience more than an event, what would shift for us? So if we're looking at an event, we might be checking the boxes. We might have all of the AV and the lighting set up and all the details together. But how would we shift that into an experience? What's the difference? Any ideas? Mood or culture? Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Anything else? We'll talk a little bit more about this when we go through our 10 steps. But it is really, I think, in many ways about us allowing the emotion to flow. And so this is something I talk about quite often, that we really do need. And if you think of a house and the framework of a house, it has to be standing strong. So we do have to have the framework of an event. We do have to have all the details organized. It's got to be laid on a really great foundation. But what happens in a house, and if you were to see my house, because I'm in my home office right now, which I will not show you, but but if we are living inside of a house, if we have rich conversations in a house, if we're making a great meal, what happens to your house? It's a bit messy, right? There's things happening within that framework that will develop relationships with other people. So it's a very beautiful, in my world, kind of this beautiful example of what an online event can look like and how we can be engaging our online guests in a way that we still have the framework, but we're really introducing this idea of creating relationships. Everybody's good? Awesome. And I think I missed one in the chat box. So the shift happens with the ability for them to be heard via the things of interest, polls, things almost minute by minute. Great point. Yeah, that we have to keep people engaged all the way through. Even more important online. So we're going to be talking about 10 steps here to how we can be engaging our online guests. And I would guess that you already are engaging your online guests, but I'll just say, let's engage them better. Let's take this whole idea of our virtual event world to the next level. And I think that is definitely possible. So the first step that I've got here is prepare. Now, when we talk about preparing, this is something that we mentioned a little bit earlier when I was doing the definition of engagement. But this idea of having an engaging event means that as a planner, as an organizer, we are deeply engaged with the message or with the product or with the idea that we're trying to get across at the event. So with you guys, what kind of ideas, messages, products do you sometimes highlight at an event? Just get some ideas in the chat box. You don't have to give specifics, but now I've done some work with the Calgary Homeless Foundation. The message there was we wanted to have everybody housed. We did events around that. I've done other client work where we were talking about maybe we need to raise funds for animal shelters and some cool events around that. Maybe it's products. So maybe you're having, had one client, they had a new line of jeans that they were wanting to have a client event around. What about you guys? What are some things that either you care deeply about or you're involved in, and you are centering an event around it? I'm sure that there's a variety. We've got Quarantine Friday beers. Okay, awesome. And it can be a gazillion different things, right? That's the beauty of events, is that we can be planning events that will be promoting any kind of idea or message or product. We've got somebody that was doing a fundraising event, a wine tasting event. That is, I've got a good friend who loves Scotch. And if he could have a whole event around learning about different Scotches, is that the word? But this idea of really being as entrepreneurs, as business owners, as people that are thought leaders, authors. I work with a lot of coaches and authors. I tell you, they are so incredibly engaged in the work. And that's why probably I love doing the work I do with the people that I work with, because there's such an investment in it. And we come alongside these clients, basically joined at the hip, because they are people that we want to see those movements grow. We want to see their business really expand. And as organizers, we've got to get in that headspace of why it matters. So that is number one, to prepare ourselves for engagement. Number two, if you guys have done any kind of marketing, the idea of understanding where are your guests, and your guests might be your clients, your guests might be your donors, they might be members, maybe they're just friends and you're throwing some kind of a fundraiser for a community organization. So understanding where are they and what do they love and why are they showing up? A lot of times we don't ask ourselves that. I have asked people at my events, why are you here? Maybe not in the front, from the front of the room, but it's really important to me to understand what was their motivator to get in the room at the time when we were doing face-to-face events. How about online? How much time do we spend understanding who we want in the room and who is just maybe naturally attracted to an event like the one that you're planning? So this idea of understanding who's in the room is really important. Number three, I should number these because I am a planner. Number three, research. Can you guys throw in the chat box, what would research be in the context of engaging online guests? Any ideas? Okay, we've got test tools on non-event audiences, reactions, polls, backgrounds. Yeah. Sorry, and I missed a chat just before that too about being a cheerleader for sales organizations. So as far as the things that you would like to get out there and engage with your customers about, yeah, amazing. So the idea of research, what are we researching? Online guests, sometimes that means we have to have our scouting hat on. If you are, I don't play hockey, I don't actually play any sports, but I understand the idea of scouting for the best players, or really asking around and getting that feel for who is doing what, where. And we have this incredible opportunity right now where really we're looking at a whole world of opportunities and great diversity in what we can be adding to our online events, because you don't need to fly somebody in. We live in Calgary, based out of Calgary, but I don't have to fly somebody in right now to have them engage with us online. They can be live streaming from across the world, from Australia or wherever it is, and really interjecting with our world, our events. It doesn't matter where you are, but there's this opportunity for us to do our research. And sometimes people feel like that's a big burden. For me, that's playtime, because I feel like if we are truly wanting to engage with our online guests, we are going to be doing some research around what could we be adding to this mix that would just really allow them that the getaway that this event can be, where it can be so intriguing and different for them that you're surprising them, not just with something new, but something that matters very much to them. And this is where it really relates back to this understanding of who are they and why does it matter. We've got all sorts of opportunities to research things that will really resonate with the people that we want to serve or the people that we want to speak to at our event. All right, so number 4. Number 4 here is that we want to reach beyond. How many of you, and you can just give me a thumbs up or a little wave or something, but how many of you have been on teams where they say, we've been there, we've done that, and it didn't work? Anybody? I got a couple of thumbs. For me, I am a challenger personality, and that is my go time. That's when I say, okay, tell me more. What is it that you have done before? What is it that you feel like either it worked or didn't work? Maybe some things that you felt like, oh, I'll never do that again. It actually is one of the biggest reasons why I became an event coach, because I kept hearing that, well, that event didn't work, or that concept, or we'll never get a mentalist to our party again, or something. And you hear these discounting because of some kind of experience they've had without really digging in on the why. So this idea of reaching beyond, now you don't have to go to the ends of the earth or do something that is unheard of. A risk doesn't necessarily mean you go way beyond even where your guests are comfortable. That's not the point of this. The point of reaching beyond is that you're saying there could be something more. And what could that something more be? And sometimes it's the nugget of what worked, or the nugget of a cool idea that maybe went off the rails for some reason, and then reaching beyond it and saying, where is that piece that we can interject into a new event? And then it's going to just go like crazy, and it's going to be really well received. So the idea of reaching beyond is really important. Have any of you experienced a reaching beyond moment in your events? If you could add that to the chat, because we need to find evidence that it works. And sometimes taking a risk is hard for people if you haven't tried it. If you haven't really, when I say the framework of an event is there, but if we haven't invited someone new into our home, if we haven't explored a new recipe to cook in our kitchen, where is the mess happening that will lead us to something new? Awesome. Oh, we've got, is doing surveys considered reaching beyond? I would say doing a survey would be part of that understanding your audience, understanding who you want at the event, or understanding your team. Let's say if it's a team building, who are they and what do they want? The reaching beyond with a survey will be maybe asking questions that will get them thinking, where they're thinking about, well, I've never thought about it like that before, or I wonder if, you could talk about risk. With one of my clients, we did a strategy session where we actually talked about this flow of understanding and leaning into the risk takers in a group. So the survey could actually come maybe from a perspective of somebody that says, oh, we've always done that and it didn't work, or we tried this other thing once and it didn't work. You could reach into understanding their thought process a bit better through a survey. You could also use that for the risk takers, where they are coming into it and saying, what if we, I love the what if question. What if we tried to move the location? What if we told people they could come in jeans to the event? That's a little different with online events. What if, the flip side of that, with the Zoom world or with our online guests, what if we told everybody to dress up to the nines in their gowns and do their hair and great jewelry or whatever, or bring your dogs to the event or something, where it really was this idea of how could we take a risk and reach beyond what we've done before. And there's a bit of chat box chatter here, so let me just jump in quick. So we've got, so Evelyn, you're talking about the surveys, getting feedback from the event, hit and miss, debriefing after the event. I think the idea of debriefing and knowing what kind of questions to ask, it's a bit of an art, but if you're really wanting to know, if you're curious and you're engaged and you want to see something new happen, that will come through in your surveys. So we've got asking questions is necessary for a healthy question. A person not wanting questions is a person not wanting to later engage. Very good point. So this idea of you want to be in the circle of people that are asking great questions of each other. Yeah. So the painful silence to get people to speak up does not really work online, likely because people have their camera off and you can't tell if they're in the room. So Lori, if I could talk to that one a little bit, it's very interesting to me because I continue to ask questions when I am doing my online workshops. It's just what I do. And for me, and I'm not saying that you should or shouldn't, but I think that sometimes we have to put ourselves in a place where I'm showing up, I'm totally engaged, and I'm really wanting to hear from the people on the other side. What has happened in the whole year of I'd say COVID and with people getting very familiar with a Zoom platform, where we have become as an audience, and I'll say for myself as well, where we become incredibly passive to the experience. And I think the shift is going to change. This is sort of my prediction for 2021. I believe there will be a shift. And that's why I'm really passionate about this session, because we also have to step up and learn how people want to engage. And so you guys might not want to sort of throw stuff in the chat box. That's okay. But I do believe that as organizers, it's up to us to find ways that people want to chime in and they want to, add to the conversation. And I do feel like sometimes, I think Lori probably was the one that said a talking head is not engaging. How many talking heads that you've been watching webinars, there are no questions and there really is no room for people to say something. Thumbs up if you've been in those kind of webinars and workshops. Not everyone is going to be that event where there's going to be sort of a lot of back and forth. But I do believe that as organizers, it is our responsibility to show up and to give people those opportunities. And I think we will start to see a shift over the months to come. So we've got a nice, calming, caring demeanor that is believable. So this works. Thank you for that. And honestly, sometimes this idea of me asking you guys questions, sometimes I want to climb in to the Zoom room and actually see you guys, because for me, the energy in a room, and that's why I love events, the energy in a room is what motivates us so much. And I have to believe that it is still possible in a global pandemic where many of us are not sure what connection means anymore. So I am incredibly passionate that we need to be placing ourselves in that position where we are allowing people to engage. So that is a complete rabbit trail, but but I think it's super important. So where are we? Oh, good. Okay, we're on number 5. Thank you guys for engaging. I do appreciate that. All right, so we've got simplify. So simplify, and I'm going to put a happy face on this one. The idea of simplify, and I am the worst for this because for me, I sometimes overthink and overplan and put too many bells and whistles into an experience. Are any of you like that? Oh, we've got, thanks for the happy face. That's awesome. So So what I have been learning lately, and honestly, I think that's also where the short guides to learning came in, because it's like, I don't have to teach a whole 6-month course. I could actually have a conversation with people and give you guys something to chew on, and that might be enough for now. So this idea of simplifying the experience doesn't necessarily mean it's just sort of a boring, webinar or training. It might mean you have one main surprise in your event. Um, in one case, we had food delivered to a group. They were eating while they were watching a magic show online. And in the real world of events, that feels pretty pared down. It feels like it's not like, is that enough? Like they're eating and watching a magic show. But people left really feeling energized and happy and cared for. And so this idea of simplifying doesn't necessarily mean that you've got to throw out all of your great ideas and all that research that you did. It just means that you can file some of those great ideas and pull them out when you know it's the right audience, or you know that your team's going to love it, or you know that you've now got an international audience. So why not have an international panel of speakers? Like, there's so much we can do, but simplifying is actually part of this, because we don't want to overthink it. All right, so then we've got support. And where are we? 1, 2. This is number 6. So supporting is where we are working with our partners. Now, I will be the absolute first one to say, I am not a tech person. I'm not the person that you want plugging in. My husband's the musician. He knows what chords go where. Lighting, that's another girlfriend of mine. Someone else does photography. Even more important online, for us to have support as partners, to bring partners in that either can support the event, but then in turn, we need to support the people that are coming, either as performers or people that will help us with our Zoom call. I've got a good friend who actually manages the chat for a lot of my workshops. She's not here today, but there's people in our lives and in our circles that can actually be a support for us, and then for us to be able to support them and really ask them how they want to shine. So maybe they need, I don't know, half an hour if they're a speaker, and they need access to like I use this instead of a whiteboard on, to share my screen, because this is how I feel like I show up the best. If I'm messing with some kind of a PowerPoint and I'm sharing my screen, I feel like I'm a bit scrambled. So supporting your entertainment, supporting the people that are showing up for you, is asking them, like, what would you need to feel incredibly comfortable, ready to go, and engaged for what we're trying to accomplish. All right, so the next one is, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about this one. And I have to spell it right, which would be really great. Participate. So if you plan events, where are you? And I'll say for a face-to-face live event, where are you typically if you are the planner or the organizer of that event? Besides the bathroom, because you're freaking out because the catering hasn't shown up yet. Where are you normally? Online, up front, you're on the side, back of the room. Yeah, you are in some kind of a control station, right? You might be by the AV. You might be in the back and making sure, that the flowers are getting set up. We are behind the scenes people typically, because there's so many moving parts, and we have to be part of that and make sure everything's going smooth. Same is true with your online event, but the difference is people can see you, basically, right? You will be one of those squares if you're doing this on Zoom, Or you will be available somehow to transition people from one thing to the next. Maybe you are the one that works out the breakout rooms or whatever it is with your online virtual event. But what I would suggest, and this kind of goes back to being engaged yourself and being part of the experience. Part of this is so that you also know how it's going down. If you are not there and not participating, you actually you won't know what might need to be tweaked, or if the sound was bad, or or if somebody is cutting out, they can't see properly. You need to be able to see what's going on, but beyond that, to participate, and I'll bring up my mentalist friend, the magician. I was there as a coordinator helping our partner with the event, but I also was incredibly engaged with the show. And I think as somebody that was co-participating in that event, I started to see how everybody was really chiming in, how they were sort of going back and forth with each other and sending messages. So there's something about this, and thank you, somebody said here, we are the producer of that experience. But I think, again, people, we don't show up necessarily all dressed up, and virtual events are just different. And I think there is some both grace for the organizers, because a lot of people have been figuring out a lot of different things over the last 8 months. And somebody just said here, co-creators with the audience. I absolutely actually love that, because we are working this out as we go, and we're starting to understand what it means to participate and for us to actually feel completely engaged in the moment. And we can take that as research moving forward and apply those things to the things that we want to be planning for 2021. So this can be really a great research tool, but I think it's a really great, like I say in the booklet as well, it's a way to bond with the people that you have as guests. Because I think we really want, even more so now, we just want that connection with the people in our lives. And even if they're customers and they're buying a product from you, I would say, as somebody coming to an event and it's some kind of a product launch, I want to hear from you. I want to feel that you are participating in it. I don't just want you to give me an advertisement and then expect me to give my money. Does that make sense? Any thumbs up on that? Like we really do want to be participants as much as we want to be that producer behind the scenes. Awesome. Okay, so then we've got the next one here is, I'll flip, oh, I can put it down here. So checking in. And in the context of engaging your audience, there is this need to observe guest responses. And we've talked a little bit about this when we're talking about participation, but when you're observing responses, this idea of shifting things in real time, we have that ability with some virtual events that we can, like if you were running a broadcast, for example, where you might have to break to a commercial because something's off, because people maybe aren't engaged, or maybe something's not right, or the volume's not right, or whatever it is as you're planning this event. But I would also say, in the positives of an event, if you've chosen a great caterer that brought food to everybody, I do this when I'm actually hired to go to an event, and I am the person that's a fly on the wall, and I'm making recordings of, not recordings like on my phone, but I'm writing down how people are responding to different parts of an event, or what is the talk in the hallway. If there's a cluster of people and they're looking upset, I might do a little bit of research and checking in with them on what exactly is happening, and is there anything I can do to support. But those are really great nuggets that you can be pulling together, checking in with them real time, and maybe making a difference for them, not just for the next time you run that event, but right in that moment. Couldn't we make that aspire to really making a difference in the moment for our guests. And that's where checking in, I think somebody said earlier on in the chat, this idea of minute by minute. And as you're going through the event, that there should be this ongoing engagement through the whole event. But this idea of checking in is the same thing, where we want to be checking in with them on all aspects, you know, on the chat, making sure that everybody's okay. Do we need a break? If it's something that's a little more, we did a 13-hour basically music marathon live streamed in July. So it was like, we had to have all of the regulations followed, obviously. But this idea of having to be checking in all day long, that everybody had what they needed. The people that were watching we answered the questions as they were coming in. We gave them advice or links to things. But this idea of checking in with them all the way through can make them feel really special too, that they've been heard, or that they have a question that about who is that person, and I'd love to get their link. For us to be having that conversation throughout the whole event is part of what checking in is. All right, how you guys doing? Speaking of checking in, we're good. We got 2 more. And then I will open it up to a couple of questions or comments, but that does sound like that's a big challenge. So if you want to reach out to me after, feel free to send me an email at coach@CandyConsulting.ca. And I can for sure give you some tips on that, and we can maybe dig in a little bit on where the challenge is. But that certainly could affect the engagement and making sure that people are feeling safe at the event as well. Yeah. So we've got, yeah, so sometimes people will be engaged and ready to learn, and sometimes they're just checking in, or they're just coming to see what you're talking about. So that will make a difference. Yeah, feel free to reach out to me if you have some specific questions about that. We could definitely chat about it. All right, so we've got 2 more here in our list. So integrate. This idea of integrating, how many of you have gone to a fundraising event? You've had an awesome night, and then at the end of the event, the music softens, and the president or somebody comes up, and they're talking about maybe the mission, maybe the challenges they're facing, and then there's this talk. The talk is, we need your money. Here's a story, and here's the envelope where you can actually put your check. Have you guys gone to fundraisers like that? Yes. Okay. The challenge with that, not only is it dated, and I have been at this a long time, so maybe that is sort of the old, you know, 70s, 80s, even 90s kind of way of doing a fundraiser or a gala event. If we want our guests to be engaged, and I don't care if this is an in-person event or an online event, this idea of avoiding or saving your guests from the awkward shift of, now we're going to talk about my product that you can purchase. Now we're going to talk about the donation that you can make to this project. We really do need to be looking at, through all of this, if we are truly coming to it engaged, if we truly want our guests to be engaged, there really needs to be this conversation all the way through your event. Again, it could be an in-person event or an online event, where you're actually allowing them to be understanding the message from a lot of different perspectives. Everyone learns differently. Some learn through hearing, some learn through seeing, some need to hear some kind of example of how this product or your message matters. So this idea of integrating your message all the way through, and in your booklet, it says carefully weave your message into the experience to avoid that awkward let's talk wrap up. So this idea of learning to craft and weave your message, and this isn't about manipulating somebody to buy something they don't want to buy. That's not the point. The point is that we are able to bring them through an experience with who you are as an organization, who you are as a company. Why are you showing up the way you do? And when you're weaving it in and integrating it into this beautiful sort of back and forth that can happen, I kind of call it this engagement dance with them, then they will start to understand and resonate with what you're talking about. And then it can become something that they will very naturally either ask questions about, or they want to be involved in, or they want to purchase it because they really start to know you as a person. Or if you're an organization, company, or group, then you can really bring all of that to the table. So integration is really important. And the last one, probably one of my favorite things, is to give gifts. And I have a business coach this year that's like, we need to manage your gifts. Because I always feel like this idea of somebody being seen, somebody being heard, if they've done something amazing, that there's these opportunities to really share that with others and maybe give a gift. But it doesn't have to be monetary or something that you're sending them. It can be a way of honoring them and their time. So how many of you, all of you on this call today, have put other things aside to be here? Maybe you're multitasking. Yeah, we got a couple of me's, which is totally cool. But the fact that you, thanks, Evelyn, the fact that you guys took an hour out of your day to be with me and to talk about what it means to engage your online guests, that is a gift. It's a gift to me because I work hard to put these things together. It is also a gift to yourself because you're allowing yourself to maybe take a different perspective on something. But the best gift is to the people in your world that you're going to be planning events for, because you are allowing yourself to soak into something, to think about something a little bit differently, and honoring this time that all of us kind of feed into this online virtual event world, which is growing, exponentially right now. But time, I've had people say to me, I don't care if something's free anymore. I actually don't care. What I care about is, am I going to get value from it? Is that person really, are they just going to try to sell me something? Is it just a waste of my time? Again, it's not enough for us to say it's free. There has to be something more to it. So this idea of really honoring your guests, it could be this following up where you might want to ask them some questions, and then there's this opportunity to ask, what did they think? Maybe they would like to make some changes. If it's especially internal, if you're working with a board or some kind of internal team, follow up with them after and have a one-on-one with them and say, what did you think? Like, did that give you what you needed on that particular topic? Or do you understand our mission better because of it? Whatever it is, but just say, thank you so much for showing up for yourself, for the cause, for this event, because time is so incredibly valuable. And especially now, I don't know if any of you feel busier if you are working from home or on Zoom meetings than we were before COVID. Does anyone else feel probably busier or more strapped for time? I have a feeling it's because we're investing so fast from one meeting to the next without any commute necessarily, without really a lot of time to process in between. So I think there's this Zoom exhaustion or this meeting, online meeting or event exhaustion that we really as organizers need to really be not just honoring their time, but saying thank you for that time. So this is, I think whatever following up looks like for you, for the people in your world, that is so important that we're wrapping it up, because we run events. This is my philosophy. We run events in cycles, not as one event. When we talk about an event cycle, we talk about 12 to 18 months. And this 12 to 18 month cycle is something that we want people to be coming. Maybe it's not all the same people every event, but you want to be engaging them month to month to month, where they are so excited and they're watching for what you've got coming up next, that they are going to be one of the first ones signing up, and it won't be your mom or your my girls are adults, and they know that sometimes they just have to come with me because I just want them there. But this idea of really looking at your events as this opportunity to create relationships with the people you care about, with the people that you want at your events, and that really becomes your I was going to say your legacy. I do a lot of event legacy type of work too, but what are you wanting to leave behind a year from now when we've all made it through 2021? We've all become masters at online events. This idea of really allowing yourself to go to the next level, and next level engagement means that we have to be stepping it up every time, risking and trying and tweaking and changing the game. So thank you everybody for coming. I know it's almost time, but I wanted to just leave about 3 or 4 minutes here. If there's any specific questions, we've got Lori in the chat box. We need to encourage people to look away from the screen. We want to look engaged, and it drains their energy. Yep. There have been some conferences. I was on an online conference. It was out of Vancouver, and typically it's a face-to-face conference. It was 3 days, and there were a lot of stretch breaks. There were music breaks. There were get your eyes off the screen breaks. But that's, yeah, really, really good point. That's awesome. And we've got one more about open-ended questions. Yeah. So this idea of really kind of keeping things really open and moving. Yeah, that's a great point too. Any questions about what engagement could look like for you guys? I've got, just a few more minutes here if you guys wanted to ask any questions or make any last comments.
So, can I use my microphone, Lisa?
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
Hello, hello.
It's just quicker than typing.
Of course.
Yeah. So I always attend a webinar, and this is on the business side. And the facilitator from the very start will say, I would really love to see your face.
Yes.
It means, switch on your camera. And this way I'm actually, he will say, this way I feel that I'm talking to like alive, people.
Right.
Not just,
exactly.
Not just the screen. So, he said it very nicely and very politely that, you almost feel like, yeah, I should put on my camera, right?
Yeah. And I think part of that too is giving them the freedom to show up as they are. Sometimes people are insecure about where they are, or their lighting's bad or whatever, right?
Yeah. So what do you think of that? Like, I mean, he will say, I don't really care where you are. I don't really care if you are actually looking at the camera, if you are laying down in your bed or in your couch or whatever you are. I just really want to see your face.
Right. And I think some people, depending on personalities, right? Like not everybody likes to be seen, and that's okay too. And this can be kind of intimidating because now we're all looking at each other, where some events, we're all looking forward, right? There's theater seating, or it's dark or something, and we can hide and enjoy the experience. So I do want to, and this kind of comes back to honoring the people that are participating and giving of their time, that we don't want them to feel uncomfortable or in a space where they feel like, I just won't go back because I don't feel like I'm in a sort of, I don't feel safe being seen for whatever reason. The other part of that, I run a vision boarding workshop, and it's like a 4-hour workshop. And then I was doing it as a Zoom meeting. So we moved it online. We had about 30 people, I think it was about 30 or 40 people online. And I was going to break people out into breakout groups to discuss parts of this process, because it's quite, it's really important. It's a great discussion point, and it works really well face to face. And then I said, because I was kind of new to this, I'm like, well, if anyone doesn't want to go into a breakout room, just type me a private message, and then I can kind of get you out of that system where you're not part of the breakouts. I got so many people saying, I don't want to go in a breakout room, that I was just like, okay, everybody relax. We're all going to be okay. Like, we don't actually have to do breakouts for this to work. And so that was a learning on my part. Hey, Ice. that was a learning on my part, that it was okay, also as the organizer, to shift gears and kind of gauge the room and what the comfort level was. Yeah. So it really kind of depends. I think we need to encourage, but we don't want to force anyone to do something that they're just feeling uncomfortable with. Any other comments or questions? We're right at 3 o'clock. We could take maybe one more question before we wrap. Or you guys are all good. You're going to be engagement experts. So what I did put in the, some of you actually probably are already, what I put in the, in your booklet. So make sure you download it from Dropbox. So the link will take you to Dropbox. You can download the PDF from there. In there, it does say here that if you want to have a follow-up call or Zoom after this session to talk about this topic, I'm more than happy to do that. The email is coach@CandyConsulting.ca. And then we're actually just updating our website right now. It's going to be a whole new website, but we've got some cool opportunities coming there with something called Clearview. It's a Clearview consultation, which is a 1-hour consultation where we go through, I won't get into what it actually means. You can read it online. But if you're interested in that, then you can check out our website. It's CandyConsulting.ca/Clearview. But otherwise, I so appreciate you guys coming out today. Any questions, please feel free to email me. Really glad that you're here to do some learning and connecting with each other. So thank you again for today. And we will talk to you guys. Thanks for the smiley face, Lori, appreciate it.
Nice, Lori. Can we stay? Can we stay, Lisa? I just have a question to you.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody else.
Thank you, everyone.
I will stop the recording for now, and then I will have a chat with you, Evelyn.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.